Welcome, everybody, to Cinematic Excrement. Someday, I just might run out of terrible video game adaptations to talk about on this show. Today is not that day, as we're looking at 2024's Borderlands.
Borderlands is partly based on the video game series of the same name, made by Gearbox Studios under the leadership of Randy Pitchford, a somewhat polarizing figure in the video game industry who has been making a meal out of his own foot lately. For anyone not familiar with the series, the first game was released in 2009 and takes place in the distant future on a real shithole of a planet known as Pandora, which is rumored to be the home of a mysterious alien vault. What's inside the vault? Artifacts from an ancient civilization? Long-lost alien technology? Riches beyond your wildest dreams? Who can say? This has attracted many so-called vault hunters to the planet, one of which you control during the game. It's a first-person shooter with RPG elements, and the player follows a main quest line along with various optional side quests while beating, shooting, and/or exploding various people and aliens, and leveling up various skills. I haven't played the original Borderlands in years, but I remember liking it at the time. I enjoyed the RPG elements and the randomized loot, which made it feel like a sort of first-person Diablo. It had a unique visual style that felt like you were inside a cartoon, a very, very violent cartoon, and I liked its offbeat sense of humor. The game was critically and commercially successful and spawned 3 mainline sequels with a 4th coming soon, a spin-off featuring the Tiny Tina character from Borderlands 2, and a pair of episodic adventure games.
And with a video game franchise this expansive and successful, it's only a matter of time before it gets ruined by a terrible movie. And I would argue this movie's fate was sealed before it even entered production.
Reportedly, in 2015, Lee Wannell was in talks to write and direct the film. You might know him as the co-creator of the Saw franchise. Now, I like the Saw movies. Well, the first 3, but the fact that Wannell was even under consideration tells me Lionsgate was looking in entirely the wrong direction. The Borderlands games have some horror elements, but that's not primarily what they're known for. The focus is on the action and the comedy, so why would they consider a horror director? Ultimately, they did not go with Wannell, but instead gave the job to Eli Roth. Again, a horror director, not exactly known for his sense of humor.
What the hell were they thinking? I'd ask if any of the executives at Lionsgate had ever played a Borderlands game, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer. However, I would have thought Pitchford would have at least given them a brief synopsis of the games and explained why people like them. Maybe someone like Edgar Wright or James Gunn would have been a good fit, but Eli Roth? The torture porn guy? Why?
It gets even worse when you find out exactly how Roth got the job. According to the man himself, the inspiration for his pitch came from his pet French bulldog taking a shit. I'm sure you think I'm making this up, and I understand why you think that, but I promise you I'm not. Again, if you're not familiar with the Borderlands games, there is a very silly, somewhat annoying, and possibly clinically depressed robot who acts as your guide during your adventures on Pandora. He is a model CL4P-TP robot, otherwise known as Claptrap, a name the character certainly lives up to as he rarely shuts up. Somehow, Eli's dog's bowel movement reminded him of this robot, or at least that's what he claims. I have to look away because she gets really shy, but one day I filmed her. She had that shy look on her face and I was like, that's Claptrap. And indeed, in the movie, there is a scene where Claptrap gets shot up by a bunch of psychos. This doesn't kill him, he's a robot, he's fine. But shortly afterward, he poops out the bullets.
Don't judge me!
Oh, I'm judging you. And I'm judging the sanity of everyone involved with this movie.
Has Eli Roth ever actually played a Borderlands game? Or at least seen footage of it on YouTube or something? Because I'd really like to know how he looked at his dog dropping a deuce and thought, that's just like Claptrap.
How, Eli? How is that anything like Claptrap? Show your work.
On top of that nonsense, they cast Jack Black as the voice of Claptrap, which I think was a mistake. I figured they wouldn't be able to get David Eddings, who voiced the character in the first 2 games but left the series after a messy falling out with Randy Pitchford. Jim Ferronda has voiced the character since then, and I don't get why they didn't just have him do the movie. Black is a fine actor, and there wasn't really anything wrong with his performance, but it just doesn't sound right. And it's not like they didn't already have enough big names to put on the poster. Was stunt casting Claptrap really necessary?
And Jack Black isn't the only person who should not have been in this movie. The entire cast is a cornucopia of mistakes. And whoever was in charge of the casting should probably have their head examined.
At the risk of sounding ageist, most of these actors are just too damn old to play these characters. As far as I can recall, most of the characters' ages are not specified in the game, with the exception of Tiny Tina, but they mostly look like they're in their 20s. And yet, in the movie, we have 45-year-old Kevin Hart as Roland, 56-year-old Cate Blanchett as Lilith, 63-year-old Gina Gershon as Moxie, and 66-year-old Jamie Lee Curtis as Tannis.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
You're telling me.
The only actors who were about the right age were Florian Monteau as Krieg and Ariana Greenblatt as Tiny Tina. And I guess we can count Benjamin Byron Davis, who has a small part in the movie as weapons dealer Marcus. Yes, he is 53, but I can believe Marcus from the games is in his 50s. This is age-appropriate casting. The rest of them are way off. I will say Gershon and Curtis at least acted like their characters from the game, as did Greenblatt and Monteau. I do wish they had done a better job with Krieg's voice, though. It's obviously ADR'd, and it never sounds like it's actually coming from the actor on screen. It's like someone off-screen is shouting his dialogue. As for Hart, he was really just playing himself, as he often does, and bore very little resemblance to his video game counterpart.
And Blanchett... oh boy. Where do I begin?
I do want to say I don't think Blanchett necessarily deserves the blame for how the movie version of Lilith turned out. She was playing the character Roth wanted her to play. The problem is that character bears no resemblance to Lilith from the games. The character was one of 4 playable Vault Hunters in the first game. She is a siren, a woman with mysterious magical powers, the cause of which is unknown. According to the game's lore, the sirens themselves tend to offer comically useless explanations for their powers. Lilith, for example, claims she obtained her powers by crossing the hotness threshold.
And that should give you a little insight into Lilith's personality. She sounds fun and a bit snarky. The character in the movie is not fun. She is a black hole from which no fun can escape.
I knew I was in for a world of hurt from the drop. The movie begins with a voiceover from Lilith describing an ancient alien race known as the Iridians who supposedly left behind a vault on the planet Pandora. This attracted various mercenaries and arms dealers who ruined this once peaceful planet, and all for nothing as the vault remains unfound. But then there was a prophecy, from whom I don't know, the source is never mentioned, that said a daughter of Iridia would open the vault and restore order to Pandora.
Yeah, that sounds like some wacko BS, right?
Kate, it's a PG-13 movie. You're allowed to say bullshit. I just played a clip of you saying shit a minute ago.
We then meet Lilith, formerly of Pandora, though she hasn't been to her homeworld since she was very young. She's now on the planet Promethea, entering a bar with her latest capture. She's a bounty hunter, you see. And for those of you new to Borderlands, no, she was not a bounty hunter in the games. I don't know why she's a bounty hunter instead of a vault hunter in the movie, and it's kind of annoying that she has to keep telling people over and over that she's
Not a Vault Hunter, not a Vault Hunter, not a Vault Hunter.
This just feels like spitting in the face of the game's fans. What is the point of that?
But that's not my biggest problem with the character. My biggest problem is she's let's see, what would you call her?
Heinous bitch is the term used most often.
Right off the bat, she is the most unpleasant character. She slams her bounty's head into the bar, shoots a bunch of guys with minimal provocation, and is just overall angry and miserable. And she's supposed to be the protagonist. And sure, it's possible for a character to be a miserable curmudgeon and still be interesting. Unfortunately, the filmmakers forgot the interesting part.
And at this point, I realized I was in for a long 100 minutes.
After murdering half the patrons in this establishment, Lilith meets Deucalion Atlas, head of the Atlas Corporation, naturally. And yes, the character's first name really is Deucalion, because I guess having the last name Atlas and being on the planet Promethea just didn't make the man Greek enough. Although the actor is Venezuelan. But anyway, Deucalion is quite the mouthful, so I'm just gonna call him Dookie. Because apparently I am 12. Dookie is our main antagonist, and he is just nothing. He's the standard issue evil corporate rich dude that you've seen 100 times before. And sure, you can make evil corporate rich dude work, especially in today's political climate, but you do have to give him, a personality. And they don't. And considering the movie includes elements from the first 2 Borderlands games, I really have to wonder why they couldn't have found a way to use the antagonist from Borderlands 2, Handsome Jack. He's a despicable human being and very easy to hate, but he's also funny.
This one guy in New Haven, right? City's burning, people are dying left and right, yada, yada, yada. This jackal rushes me with a spoon. a freaking spoon, and I'm dying laughing, right? So I scoop out his stupid little eyeballs with it, and his kids are all, oh, yeah! And I can't even, he can't see where he's going. He's bumping into stuff, and anyway, I don't know, maybe you had to be there. The moral is, you're a total bitch.
And again, that's the problem with the movie. The game's sense of humor is largely absent. What we have instead is about as pleasant as passing a kidney stone.
So Dookie hires Lilith to track down what he initially claims is his daughter, Tina, though it's later revealed she was created in a lab using Iridian blood. Since this technically makes her a daughter of Iridia, he thought Tina would be able to open the vault on Pandora. But one of his soldiers, Roland, decided an asshole like Atlas should not have access to whatever is in the vault, so he betrayed him and freed Tina from incarceration in one of the saddest attempts at nerd pandering I have ever seen.
God damn.
There's no air holes in there. What a stupid helmet.
Was that your attempt at a Spaceballs reference? You, sir, are not fit to change Mel Brooks' Depends, and let's not pretend otherwise.
And if that wasn't enough,
Fix stormtrooper ass bitch.
We gotta throw in a Star Wars reference as well. How many times do I have to explain this? Never refer to a better movie during your own. And you did it twice in as many minutes.
and while Roland is trying to help Tina escape, one of the psychos the Atlas Corporation is keeping prisoner breaks out because they thought a glass wall would be enough to keep this big burly bastard under control. They're not too bright, are they? For reasons that are never explained, this psycho, known as Krieg, joins forces with Roland and Tina, and they flee to Pandora. So Lilith heads to the shithole planet that used to be her home and immediately encounters Claptrap, who was apparently programmed to annoy the hell out of Lilith and occasionally the audience upon her return to the planet. And here's where the math gets confusing. The movie makes it clear that Claptrap was programmed by Lilith's mom, and he says he's been lying dormant for 36 years. But Lilith's mom sent her away from Pandora when she was 8 because the shit was getting too thick. There's no way only 36 years have passed. 46 maybe. In any case, with Claptrap's help, Lilith eventually tracks Tina down, and at first the girl looks like she's happy that her daddy sent someone to rescue her. However,
Miss Lilith, can you grab my badonkadonk?
No, I don't think she can. Not without going to prison anyway.
oh, never mind, she meant the toy bunny. Oh shit, she meant the toy bunny! Yeah, turns out Tina is not too anxious to reunite with dear old dad. I'd feel the same way if my dad was keeping me in prison. And I will say, Greenblatt's performance as Tiny Tina is one of the few bright spots of the movie. She has a few funny lines, and they mostly got the character right in terms of age and personality.
Time to make it rain with your body parts.
But before Lilith can convince Tina to stop trying to blow her up, please and thank you, they're found by Dookie's private army, the Crimson Lance, led by Commander Knox, played by Janita Gavankar. The character is loosely based on General Knox, who was the main antagonist for one of the DLC expansions for the first Borderlands game. And as you can see, he is not a middle-aged woman. But this is not meant to be a gender swap. While it's never mentioned in the movie, according to press materials, Commander Knox is supposed to be his daughter, and her inclusion in the movie caused a whole lot of Borderlands fanboys to become pants-sweatingly mad.
And a small part of me gets it, but a much larger part of me thinks these people were overreacting, as Knox is the least of this movie's problems.
I find it a little silly that the fans would get so bent out of shape over a character that wasn't even in the game proper. You only encounter General Knox if you played the optional DLC. But it's also a little silly that they bothered to create a character for the movie based on a character that even people who played the game could have easily skipped. And if you wanted to have a woman in charge of the Crimson Lance, they already had a female leader.
The contents of the vault are rightfully the property of the Atlas Corporation. But you... you belong to me.
Commandant Steele was right there! And unlike General Knox, she wasn't an optional DLC character. She was the game's main antagonist.
Of course, they'd probably change some aspects of the character, like she'd be 60 years old and British for some reason, and she probably wouldn't be a siren, although we never really saw her siren powers during the game, so I'm not sure if that would be a big loss. In any case, they had an option that didn't involve inventing a new character. So why invent a new character? Anyway, very much against her will, Lilith has now joined forces with Roland, Tina, and Krieg, and as they make their journey across Pandora, credit where it's due, this shithole planet looks very much like it does in the games. The landscape, the vehicles, the dilapidated buildings, it's all there. They even included a few landmarks like Pisswash Gully. 3 guesses how it earned that name, though this does lead to one of the dumber moments in the movie. As our heroes are driving through what I will remind you is called Pisswash Gully, Tina decides that now is a great time to open a window. And the predictable happens.
You know how I said they mostly got Tiny Tina right? I'm pretty sure that Tina from the games would be smart enough to not open a window while driving through what is basically a giant toilet.
Moving on, our heroes make it to the town of Sanctuary, where they meet up with old friends of Lilith's mom, Moxie and Tanis, the latter of whom Lilith still holds a grudge against for basically abandoning her after Lilith's mother placed her in Tanis' care. She's supposed to be one of the good guys, folks. Why are so many of the supposed heroes such horrible people? We're almost at the halfway point, and the movie really hasn't given me anyone to root for except maybe Tina. But the rest of them? I want them all to die. You know who else needs to die? Whoever wrote this terrible dialogue.
Your father is Deucalion Atlas, isn't he?
Yes and no.
Not a yes or no question.
Yes, it was! Oh my god, I feel like I'm losing my mind here.
I'm not sure if the line was supposed to be not a yes and no question and Blanchett screwed it up, or if it was actually written as she said it. Either way, somebody screwed up, and I'd love to know how nobody caught it. Anyway, Lilith and company are apparently stuck with Tanis as they need to collect a key to open the Iridian Vault, and Tanis conveniently knows where it is. Unfortunately, it's in a den of psychos, which leads to an action sequence that's not particularly well done. I've seen much worse, don't get me wrong, but I've seen a lot better too. And this is where the movie suffers from its PG-13 rating. Violence in the Borderlands series is comically over the top. It's rated M for mature for a reason. And the movie's violence looks neutered by comparison, especially during a moment where Lilith gets her hands on a flamethrower. We see her spraying fire in the general direction of the psychos, but I can't even tell if the fire hits them.
If you're going to make a Borderlands movie and have someone spraying fire at a bunch of psychos, I expect to see those psychos running around while on fire, flailing their arms in the air and screaming, "I smell delicious!" But we get none of that. And I'm sure the Lionsgate executives were like, well, we gotta tone down the violence because the movie will make more money if it's PG-13. And I would just like to point out Deadpool and Wolverine, an R-rated movie, made $1.3 billion. Suck it, Lionsgate.
Anyway, fast forwarding a bit, they find the location of the vault as well as a Dookie ambush as he's been secretly tracking them this whole time. But this is the moment where Nox finally grows a conscience and she steps in to defend Tina and gets vaporized immediately.
Farewell, Nox, we hardly knew ye. Seriously, the movie told me nothing about you. I don't even know why you were here.
Unfortunately, Dookie still can't open the vault as it turns out Tina is not the daughter of Iridia from the myth. Lilith is, and her siren powers have conveniently awoken. And she opens the vault, which proves to be Dookie's downfall as there's not much in there except for a bunch of floating rocks and a giant tentacle monster. That sort of resembles the monster that was in the vault in the game, but I guess they didn't have the budget to show the whole thing. And with Dookie defeated, they return to Sanctuary where we get a brief shot of Moxie's children, Scooter and Ellie, characters from the games who I believe were supposed to have a slightly bigger role, but their scenes were cut. And they all live something ever after.
Let me tell you everything you need to know about Pandora.
It sucks, and it would be better if we never went there.
I wasn't exactly expecting great things from this movie. I've never been Eli Roth's biggest fan, and video game adaptations don't exactly have the best track record, but it was still far worse than I expected. The script sucks, the tone is all wrong, the characters are insufferable, the villain is lame, and most importantly, it's not funny and the action sequences aren't done very well. And those were the two main things they needed to get right. I know I'm repeating myself, but Eli Roth was not the right person for the job. Some of the actors did an okay job considering what they had to work with, and they did nail the look of Pandora. And the soundtrack wasn't half bad, though conspicuous by its absence is Ain't No Rest for the Wicked by Cage the Elephant, which was featured in the intro for the first game. Not only is it a good song, but in my opinion, it's one of the best video game intros ever, and I was so disappointed that they didn't include it in the movie. Borderlands made a little over $30 million on a budget that was about 4 times that, making it a certified box office bomb. Critics and fans were about as kind to it as I was. It earned 6 Razzie nominations, including Worst Picture, though it failed to win any of them, and it is largely considered to be one of the worst movies of 2024. And throughout the negative reactions, Pitchford continued to post through it on Twitter, seemingly oblivious to the movie's obvious problems.
Well, the first stage of grief is denial.
Bottom line, this movie is crap and not worth a minute of your time. Don't buy it, don't rent it, and if it pops up on TV, change the channel. But feel free to give the games a look if you haven't already. If first-person shooters are your thing, they're fun.
And that's all for the Borderlands movie, and let's never speak of it again. Next time, we're going to look at a classic Disney animated movie. Sorry, folks, we are experiencing some technical difficulties. The teleprompter is stuck. 1 second, let me see. How do I unfreeze this? Force restart. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, there it goes. Once more with feeling. Next time, we're going to look at a classic Disney animated movie's live-action adaptation. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I get that. Until then, I am the Smeghead, hoping Randy Pitchford will eventually learn to shut the hell up.
Is there any way out of here that doesn't involve garbage?
No.